to Ernie.
It's a step over there. He walks past him, and then it's just a bit of magic.
Opening up for a shot for Moises Caicedo.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Arthur Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Tune in to Lead Story. Weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jody Ann Quarry.
Brought to you by Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services.
I'm me, the stylist, no scam and style me.
From the market to the farm to the office, money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ, real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings.
At least my mattress. No charge me for sleep on it.
Partner plan.
Remember last year we needed our payouts early? But Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first.
Or a sketchy loan flyer.
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, empowering everyday Jamaicans one episode at a time.
Grandpa, it's 2026. You can't keep hiding all your money in every single pocket forever.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Breaking news tonight, the Strait of Hormuz is open. Iran has declared commercial shipping fully restored, and oil prices have plunged more than 13% in a single day. But here in Jamaica, the government has already moved. The $4.50 weekly fuel price cap is gone. A new tiered pricing mechanism is in place. Jamaicans are being told to prepare for higher fuel prices as the government moves away from shielding the country from global oil shocks. Was that policy necessary? And will going to school and work from home help? Also tonight, Parliament's Ethics Committee has summoned PNP Member of Parliament Dennis Gordon to appear before it on April 22 in connection with the University Hospital of the West Indies tax exemption scandal. Can Parliament police itself and be believed? Later, as lawmakers review the Child Diversion Act, a critical question emerges. Are some boys being pushed into systems they should never enter simply because normal adolescent behavior is being misread? And one man prepares to run the London Marathon while living with multiple sclerosis, turning personal challenge into public purpose. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story. The Strait of Hormuz is open tonight. Iran's foreign minister posted on X this morning that passage for all commercial vessels is completely open. Brent crude, or European crude, has dropped more than 13% to around $86 a barrel. The U.S. crude we use fell to $79.31. But even with today's drop, oil remains above the $70 pre-war level. And the U.S. naval blockade against Iran specifically remains in force. Here at home, though, in Jamaica, Energy Minister Darrell Vaz appeared on this program last night and defended the government's decision to dismantle the $4.50 weekly price cap in favor of a new tiered mechanism. He said Petrojam had absorbed between 1.3 and 1.4 billion Jamaican dollars over 4 weeks, and that continuing to cap to June would cost the government $11.8 billion. Joining me now is opposition spokesman on energy, shadow minister with that portfolio, leader of government business in the House of Representatives, and member of Parliament for Eastern Kingston and Port Royal, Philip Polwell. Mr. Polwell, welcome back to Lead Story.
Thanks so much. Good evening to you and your viewers.
Thanks so much for joining us. Minister Vaz yesterday told this program that Petrojam absorbed between $1.3 and $1.4 billion over 4 weeks to shield Jamaicans from the full cost of oil, and that, he said, continuing that mechanism to June would cost the government about $11.8 billion. You've argued that Jamaicans still need the support, especially as they're facing higher electricity bills at home, especially if they have to stay at home more. What's the opposition's full position?
Well, first of all, we believe that there is a need for consumers to get some relief. But the way the government has approached this situation, I believe, is fraught with a lot of dangers. Firstly, I don't believe that there should have been a price support mechanism. I think once you start to tamper with this facility that Petrojam has, a pricing mechanism that has built a lot of confidence in it. Once you start to tamper with it, people are not going to trust you.
Tamper with it before with the $4.50 cap, or now that Petrojam is going back to the table with a floor of $4.50, but potentially every week adding on $7 in the middle, $12, or whatever it is that they decide now after this cap has been removed?
Yes, but before now, we never had a cap. When I was the minister, I would not support a cap, and it's for the reason that, again, people need to ensure that there's no interference. And by capping the price, you are in fact interfering in what ought to be a market-determined price. What we've seen with Petrojam over the last 3 years is losses totaling 2 years ago $4 billion. Last year it was another $4 billion, and there's a projection for Petrojam to lose a lot more money, so somebody has to pay. Our preference is to recognize that the government has predicated this budget on a price of fuel at about $65 to $70 per barrel.
$62.20. That's much
Absolutely.
lower than where it is what it is that we're likely to be experiencing in the coming months. Are you saying that the budget is then out on arrival?
No, in fact, they're likely to make an enormous amount of money when the price has moved up to recently $100, it's now down to $80. So they're getting a lot more revenues than what they had projected. So all I'm saying is that in relation to taxes on petroleum products, you cap it at the $62 that you were anticipating and allow for the remaining higher price to be without taxes. So you're going to be given a significant benefit to the consumers, to the motorists.
So is that a special consumption tax to which you're referring that is added onto petroleum? About 31 to 35% of the tax of gasoline at the pump here in Jamaica?
Right. So every liter that you purchase, you pay about 35% taxes on it. I'm suggesting that the way to do this, the way to provide the relief, is to tax up to the point of $62 per barrel. And once you get above that, you're allowed that to be tax-free to give a break to the consumer. That for me is far more meaningful and credible than capping and playing around with the pricing from Petrojan.
Well, let's listen to Minister Darrell Vaz, who joined us yesterday, on his response to any sort of suggestion that the opposition makes, including one that he says anybody else saying anything else would have been wrong. Let's listen to him.
First of all, the Petrojan has been losing money, as has been reported in the Standing Finance Committee. It was projected to make a small profit this year, and I believe based on what is happening now, that is going to be wiped out, because whatever is the losses that Petrojan is going to make as a result of this would have to come from the consolidated fund, which is already set in terms of the budget for this year. So I suspect that any margins or any profit that Petrojan would be making would have to go towards offsetting the effects of this war. And I just want to say very clearly that anything other than what we are doing now would create a very simple scenario. Either heavy cuts in infrastructure, health, education, security, roads, or new taxes on the already burdened Jamaicans as a result of this. So we have decided to just pivot, protect the fiscal space needed to do that.
He wants to protect this fiscal space, and he's not seeing the kind of money that you are that could allow for a cut in the special consumption tax based on the budget estimate of about $62.20. Is this something that the opposition has put to the government? Because he's saying anything other than that what they're doing wouldn't have made sense.
But it is quite ridiculous, in fact ludicrous. The fact is that if you predicate a budget on a price that is lower than the current price, it means that you will be getting a lot more revenues than you are anticipating. And all I'm saying is from that increased revenue. So there's no issue of fiscal risk or anything like that. The government is now pocketing a lot more money because the price of oil has gone up.
Well, hold on, Philip Paulwell. Let me continue to hear from you on this, as well as talk about parliamentary accountability after this quick break here inside Lead Story.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time...
Continuing our conversation with Philip Paulwell, shadow spokesperson on energy. Minister Paulwell, before the break, you were talking to us about what it is that the government could do, what kinds of support that Jamaicans could get. But yesterday we also spoke with economist Damien King, who said the government should not have shielded anybody at all. Shielding meant that Jamaicans didn't understand how expensive oil was, and that has put us in the predicament we are today. How do you respond?
Yeah, so my approach is entirely different. I believe that the government should not have caused Petrojam to absorb those higher prices. That is ridiculous in an environment where Petrojam has already been losing money. We want to ensure that the government maintains the revenues that it had projected. And so there's no issue of fiscal problems arising from the proposal I'm making, which is simple. The budget is predicated on the price of oil being at about $62. The price having gone up means that the government is realizing a lot more revenues than it had projected. And all I'm saying that those additional revenues should go back to the consumer by way of the adjustment that is going to be done to the SCT. And so the SCT will be collected on a price of, on the price of oil being at about $62. Once it gets above that, you do not charge SCT on the additional.
Well, that's a proposal that certainly the Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association might listen to as well, given that they've said a suspension of the SCT is something that they want to see. Quickly, though, before you go, you're also leader of government business, because you wear so many hats.
Opposition business.
Opposition business in the house. Let me just quickly hear you on this, because it's this parliamentary committee issue. The Ethics Committee has summoned your colleague, Member of Parliament for St. Andrew East Central, Dennis Gordon, to appear before it on April 22 in connection with the University Hospital of the West Indies procurement and tax exemption matter. You have publicly questioned whether the Ethics Committee has a procedural basis to call Mr. Gordon, but you are also watching and seeing public accountability calls. Talk to us about why you made that position.
Yes, and I believe it's very important that we are clear about the rules of the committees. Firstly, we are aware of this matter because the PAC, Public Accounts Committee, has been handling it. What we know about the matter is that it has been referred to the Integrity Commission and MOCA, and those bodies are engaged in their own investigations, and we expect that they will report shortly. So those processes are happening. The Ethics Committee had received from the Parliament a motion to exempt Mr. Gordon because he's a member of Parliament and he does business with the government. And there are many members of Parliament in that scenario. It's a recommendation from the Parliament to the Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee met and they approved it. That, for me, is the end of the matter. Unless the Parliament were to say to the Ethics Committee, we want you to go back and review this issue, then the Ethics Committee on its own cannot summon anybody. And it has no authority.
That distinction is going to make a lot of people look to April 22, when the Ethics Committee has now asked Dennis Gordon to come before it, based on what it is that you're saying. Philip Paulwell, they're going to be watching and seeing how that committee manages this process. Philip Paulwell, opposition spokesperson on energy and leader of opposition business in
and I'm making my budget presentation next week, Tuesday.
There you go. So we're watching that as well. Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story. All right, we're wanting to move now to work from home, because you have been told that potentially you could be saving money by working from home. But we also have now, as we shift to policy discussions, one that asks who absorbs the cost? Yesterday, we spoke with Energy Minister Darrell Vaz, and he said no determination had been made as to whether or not we were going to have a defined work from home policy. Cabinet was to meet to make that decision. But tonight, the Strait of Hormuz has reopened, and therefore these conversations about work from home, maybe you're going right back to work. We'll speak with the Jamaica Employers Federation on their look at this proposal, as well as what COVID-19 taught us about work from home. And we're joined today by President of the Jamaica Employers Federation, Wayne Chen. Thanks so much for joining us, Wayne Chen, inside Lead Story.
Thanks for having me. The first thing I want to say is that we've stopped calling it work from home, and I'll tell you a little story.
Yes.
Back during the pandemic, when we were promoting remote work, I used to call it work from home until some senior women came to me after one of my talks and said, please stop calling it work from home, because we find that we are home and we're not only doing the work that we were expected to do in the office, we find that we're also catering to our partners who are home. We're doing child raising.
There you go.
So what some of them had resorted to doing was to put on their usual work dress and go to a nearby cafe or some other site. So they would be working remotely, but not doing the household chores
All right.
in addition.
So let's be fancy then and call it remote work, because you're right.
Remote work.
Especially as women have multiple responsibilities, childcare responsibilities, household
Absolutely.
responsibilities. Some people can work from home and log onto their computers. Others have to deal with a multitude of things. But Minister Vaz, earlier this week, floated a return to, I can't call it work from home now after that story, remote work arrangements as an energy conservation.
I was cool about that several years ago, and I've been very sensitive to these.
There you go. Well, all of us are better off now for this learning. But he said that no cabinet decision has been taken on this return to remote work. As a president of the Jamaica Employers Federation, what's your first reaction? And would this be seen for you as similar to the Flexi Work Week discussions that we're also having?
It is part and parcel of the Flexi Work discussion. It's also part and parcel of an issue that we have been monitoring and been alarmed by, and that's Jamaica's low productivity crisis. We recognize that the flexi work arrangements, recognize that allowing remote work where feasible and where measurable is one of the solutions to raising productivity in Jamaica. Since we are focused now on remote work and a crisis, exacerbated by the recent energy price crisis, it's a good time to look at the opportunities within this and to continue to look in a very serious and intentional way at using remote work to boost productivity. It will require, firstly, and let me start by saying this is not a technology issue. This is a management and process issue, and in many cases, a change in mindset issue. The fact is that newer generations of Jamaican workers want the opportunity for hybrid work, being sometimes in the workplace, sometimes working remotely. The polls we have done show that this is generally the case, to the point when I talk to HR managers now, they say they don't need a poll to hear where younger generations of Jamaican workers want to be. The fact is that with the emphasis on greater productivity, the emphasis on work-life balance, the fact that many of us spend inordinate amounts of time in traffic, the cost of getting to and from the workplace, especially now with the fuel prices up, actually give us the opportunity to look back at how do we blend remote work into the functioning of our organizations.
Absolutely. Something that we took a look at in the times of COVID-19. We can take a look at right now, but the government is talking about implementing hybrid schedules, but not only for work, but for schools, to reduce school movement. That is going to be able to help us deal with the fuel problems. But with your story that you started with, parents, especially those with young children, may not be able to report to work. Has the Jamaica Employers Federation modeled what that looks like for productivity?
Absolutely. The fact is that what we promote is there is no one size fits all. There are obviously jobs that cannot be done remotely. There are obviously workplaces where to just shift to remote work without putting in place the proper measurement tools is going to be a futile exercise and only result in frustration and lost productivity. Everything has to move in tandem. Everything has to be aligned. And it's a good opportunity.
So if the children are at home and the parents have to go to work, or the parents are at home and the children have to go to work, that is not no starter.
That is it. It has to own the individual jobs. It has to be centered around something that we promote, which is dialogue and discussion. As I say, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It should be implemented where feasible, and it should be, as I say, the ideal would be a hybrid approach, because we also find that when people work 100% remotely, the organizational culture suffers, because you know that there is value, or ought to be value, when teams get together and see each other face to face, because communication is not just the words that we speak.
Yes, and being able to be in these spaces, bounce ideas off each other is very, very helpful. However, we're having this conversation before Cabinet has come to a decision, and now with the new news that the Strait of Hormuz has reopened today and oil prices have dropped more than 13%. If prices begin to ease at the pump in the coming weeks, does the work from home or remote work conversation become irrelevant? Or does this crisis expose a structural vulnerability Jamaican employers need to address regardless?
Regardless, it's something that we have promoted. We certainly stepped up the promotion of remote work since the onset of the pandemic, which this March would have meant 6 years ago. We have been very consistent around it. We have learned a lot. We said that the crisis was too good to go to waste. And I will say that many Jamaicans and many Jamaican workplaces have learned how to work remotely. The fact that we are doing this interview by Zoom,
yes,
means once upon a time I'd be in the green room over at CVM and getting.
We want to welcome you back to the room, though, you know, Mr. Chen. We want to welcome you to sit right beside me. But yes,
I'll be back from time
we have productivity tools like this that allow for us to have this sort of remote conversation.
Absolutely. In fact, many of us have found that we are actually doing more work since we are able to work remotely. Where I am, I'm not even in Jamaica at the moment. I'm 6 hours, it's midnight where I am, and I'm still able to. And
I'm grateful to. So you see, the president of the JF still talking to us at midnight, talking about.
Working remotely.
So see, if he wasn't here, you know, he would just say, I can't talk to you, but look at what remote work has done. Allowed him to then work late into the wee hours of the night and talking to us about the benefits.
But here's a great opportunity for Jamaica.
Yes.
The great opportunity for Jamaica as we talk about rebuilding the country and putting resilience into the economy. It opens up the whole world of employment for Jamaicans living on the island of Jamaica. It gives us the opportunity to make geography almost irrelevant. Once we have a good internet connection, once we have a training in the proper skills, and not just the technical skills, but in the employability skills, it means that every Jamaican, young or old, has the opportunity to work virtually in the global economy, selling their talents, selling their services, selling their skills, their competencies, their hours, their time.
And that means that remote work is not just a local conversation, but a global one as well, allowing for Jamaicans to participate in the global world of work.
Absolutely. We need to integrate it into how we teach our children, the skills that we impart to them. And let us not forget that lifelong learning, staying in the workforce longer, has become an imperative.
Yeah.
And those of us who can afford to retire at 60 and 65, that number is shrinking largely because we're living longer, we're living healthier, hopefully. We want to do more. We don't plan to just go home and spend the rest of our lives knitting and bouncing.
But you see, and that has knock-on effects that we certainly have to have conversations on as a nation. But Wayne Chen, president of the Jamaica Employers Federation, there are so many people now who have now put in their lexicon remote work as opposed to work from home. Thanks to your story and thanks to you joining us.
It's ringing in my ears, those ladies who cautioned me.
Thanks so much for joining us.
To work.
Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead
Thanks
Story
for having me.
Tonight. Even at midnight, he's with us. We'll take a break and come back, remembering one of our greats and then seeing how our boys are perfectly normal, but are sometimes being brought before the courts. Stay with us.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
I'm me and the stylist, no scam and style me.
From the market to the farm to the office, money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ. Real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings.
At least my mattress, no charge me to sleep on it.
Partner plan.
Remember last year we needed our payouts early? But Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first.
Or a sketchy loan flyer.
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, empowering everyday Jamaicans one episode at a time.
Grandpa, it's 2026. You can't keep hiding all your money in every single pocket forever.
Before we continue, we pause. Jamaica lost a voice yesterday. Ernie Smith, born Glenroy Anthony Michael Arcangelo Smith on the 1st of May, 1945. He died at the University of Miami Hospital yesterday, April 16, 2026. He was 80 years old. His music was not loud. It did not demand your attention. It simply arrived and stayed. You might remember some of his greatest hits. Pitter Patter, All for Jesus. Come, you see, that song, that was Ernie Smith. Must be a dopey or a gunman. See? Dopey Gunman, one of his songs as well. And Life is Just for Living, a song that had originally been written for a Red Stripe commercial that won the Yamaha Music Festival in Japan in 1972 and made Ernie Smith the first Jamaican to win an International Music Award. In 1973, the Jamaican government awarded him with the Badge of Honor for meritorious service in the field of music, the first time that distinction was given to a musician. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has described him as an irreplaceable treasure. He's survived by his wife, Claudette, 5 children, and 1 grandchild. To his family, to everyone who grew up with his voice in the background of their lives, Lead Story extends its deepest condolences. Rest well, Mr. Smith. We're making this shift now, not to one of the topics that many people talk about, but also talking about our children. Because the Joint Select Committee of Parliament this week is reviewing the Child Diversion Act of 2018, a law designed to steer children who have committed offences away from the formal criminal justice system and towards rehabilitation. But also this week, Children's Advocate Diane Gordon-Harrison warned the committee that the program is being stretched beyond its purpose. Non-offending children, many of them boys, are being referred not because they've broken the law, but their parents are struggling and have nowhere else to turn. And she reminded us of that in Lead Story on Wednesday. The question tonight is not about the law, it's about what we understand or misunderstand about the adolescent brain, and specifically our boys. Joining me now is counseling psychologist Dr. Patrice Charles King of the Phoenix Counseling Center to talk to us about this. Dr. Charles King, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Parents often describe their teenage sons as having become a completely different person, Dr. Charles King, defiant, risk-taking, emotionally volatile. From a neuroscience standpoint, what exactly is happening in these boys' brains that they move from your sweet little boy that you had to all of a sudden becoming a teenage terror?
Yes, I have 3 boys, 3
men.
You
know this you know this firsthand then, Dr. Charles King.
So. Apart from being a psychologist, I'm a mom of 3 men right now. And so what I think parents need to understand is that when a boy or when they start to change in ways that feel defiant to you as a parent, you have to understand that adolescence is not just a behavioral shift. It's a neurological and also a hormonal transformation. And what happens is there are 2 major systems that are developing at different speeds. The emotional brain develops first. And in the emotional brain, you have areas which are responsible for emotions, rewards, impulses. And during adolescence, this system becomes highly active and very sensitive. And what happens later, what develops later, is the control system. And of course, as parents, we wish that this developed first. It really doesn't.
Yes.
Control system, which is that prefrontal cortex, that's responsible for the big stuff, the decision making, the reasoning, and the impulse control. And this really does not start developing until literally between 19, 20, in the mid-20s.
Hey.
And can you imagine what that means in real life? You have a boy who feels things more intensely, but is being told by society that you should not feel anything at all. You have a boy that reacts more quickly, so he's reacting based on emotional decisions, so he's impulsive. But he does not yet have the full ability to regulate those emotions.
So if what you're saying then is how we should be looking at our boys, that prefrontal cortex you spoke about a moment ago, the part of the brain responsible for that impulse control and long-term decision making, if it's not fully online until about mid-20s, what does that mean practically for how a parent should interpret their teenage son's behavior?
I think it may look like defiance. It may look like him talking back. It may look like him withdrawing. It may look like him challenging authority. So that's what defiance may look like. Neurologically, it is often immature regulation. And it's not an intentional disrespect, but just more like, I just don't know how to regulate my emotions. And when you add on that hormonal layer, especially when they're, going into teenage and there's that rise of testosterone, there's that increase for independence. There is that heightened sensitivity to respect and status. Like I require respect now. I require myself to be at a certain status, and so that creates more of a risk-taking type of behavior. So you're gonna hear parents talking about, "Don't answer me back," and you may find that they believe that their authority is being challenged. Or, and for the boy, he may feel like there is a threat to his identity because he can't speak up or speak out for himself.
The Children's Advocate talked to us this week. She told us that the Joint Select Committee of Parliament is looking at the child diversion bill, and she says many non-offending children, many of them boys, unfortunately, are being referred to the child diversion program, not because they've committed any offense, but because their parents are struggling and they say they have nowhere else to turn. As a counseling psychologist, what does that tell you about the state of family support systems in Jamaica?
Sure. I can also tell you as a psychologist that works with the children on the child diversion program, that a lot of the children on the program, what they actually need in the moment is guidance in their thinking. So they need parents who themselves are going to take a moment to not shout and scream and beat, but to speak. So just guidance in the way that they need to go through collaboration, supporting, regulating their emotions, and they need a space to develop independence safely. And that's very important. So for parents, don't match intensity with intensity. If you have a baby that is crying because they're tired. You're not going to scream at that baby. You're not going to scream and shout at them. What you're going to do is you're going to speak to them calmly. You're going to try to use a soft tone to get them to go to sleep. So don't match intensity with intensity. If he escalates and you escalate, you now have two emotional brains in conflict and no regulation in the room. So there's nothing that you're teaching that child when it comes to emotional regulation. So I would advise parents to lower their tone and slow the moment down. And I know that they may be thinking, that's crazy. I can't do that. I need to color this boy. But no.
And this boy might be larger than you, growing taller than you are, has bass in their voice now. This might be also for a parent a moment where they feel that they must show dominance. I'm still your parent. I continue to be the one to whom you should defer. That's a tension as well, especially in a Jamaican context.
You can't beat respect into someone. It will never happen. And you really need to separate disrespect from development. Boundaries absolutely matter when it comes to raising children. But you have to ask yourself, is he being intentionally disrespectful, or is he overwhelmed, frustrated, or is he trying to assert independence? So not every raised voice is rebellion. And sometimes it's underdeveloped communication skills that parents are dealing with.
Underdeveloped on the part of the child, and parents who've never learned that, underdeveloped on their part as well, and they're having this back and forth conversation that is unproductive. But Dr. Charles King, this is something that is leading these children into the criminal justice system. What is the psychological risk of placing a child who has not committed an offense into a system designed for children who have?
You know, if you're speaking about the child diversion program, I think the child diversion program, and I'm not speaking just because I work with those children, but I think it's an excellent program, because it's not that you're placing a child in a program because they didn't do anything or committed a crime. It's that you're placing a child in a program who can acknowledge that maybe I'm doing something wrong, and then you're creating a system and a structure around that child to help that child.
But those are for those children who have done something wrong. Other parents want their children in the child diversion program, not because they've done anything wrong, but because the parent themselves is seeing these things, the defiance, the talking back, as not a normal part of their development, but something gone wrong with this child. What do you do when you have a child who hasn't done anything wrong being placed in a system that is meant now to divert children who actually have?
Well, the system does not blame a child. The system is not going to treat a child as if they're a criminal, whether they admit to doing something or not. And one of the wonderful things about the child diversion program is that it involves the parents. So yes, they get a certain amount. The structure that's set up is a certain amount of psychotherapeutic therapy for the children, but a part of that therapy intervention includes parenting. It includes counseling for the parents, because a lot of these parents are also going through high levels of stress, and they themselves don't know how to deal with it. And that is why it's so good to bring in children, you know, and if you're saying that the child diversion program is going to start taking children that have not committed a crime, but they're probably in a home where their parents are deeming them as uncontrollable, then absolutely, because then you have therapists that can help with family counseling and that can help to establish the type of lessons that parents will need to instead of control, move it to coaching.
And I think that is so important, that parents know then that there are these places, there are these spaces, there are these tools that exist. We don't want them misused as we are now looking at the Child Diversion Act, but certainly knowing that what your boy is going through is a normal part of their development will certainly allow parents at home today to better appreciate these changes. Dr. Patrice Charles King, counseling psychologist, thank you so much. Some parents heard this conversation tonight and exhaled, especially as a mother of 3. You have helped them. It's an important conversation. We're grateful for your expertise on this matter. Of course. We're going to take a break and come back to you talking to somebody who has said his body has not cooperated, his multiple sclerosis has flared, his training plan has not gone well, but he's running anyway. Mikhail Jackson tells us about that next and why multiple sclerosis is something that you're going to learn about as he tries to run for a cure. Stay with us.
Delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Ernie Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Center.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more.
Multiple sclerosis is a chronic neurological condition in which the immune system attacks the myelin sheath, the protective coating on the nerve fibers of the brain and spinal cord. It's unpredictable. It's different for everyone. And in the Caribbean, it's often diagnosed late or not at all. Our next guest is an attorney. He's a husband and a father of two. In September 2020, at the height of COVID, he lost vision in his right eye. 14 months later, his diagnosis was confirmed: multiple sclerosis. On April 26, 9 days from now, Michael Jackson will run the TCS London Marathon to raise funds for the Multiple Sclerosis or MS Society. This is not his first London Marathon, it's his second. But training has been hard, and he's running anyway. Michael Jackson, welcome to Lead Story.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Jody.
You're talking to us now about the story of your life. Start us off as we discuss multiple sclerosis and you discovering that you had it. On September 2020, at the height of COVID, you lost vision in your right eye. Take us back to that moment and what went through your mind when multiple sclerosis was first suggested as a possibility.
Well, to be fair, I couldn't believe it. I think I'm a healthy young man at the time, 6 years ago. And I remember I was actually jogging at the time with a colleague, and he said, who is a doctor, and he said, no, you're telling me that you're seeing things, you're losing vision in one of your eyes, you need to get it checked out. Went to my ophthalmologist, and it was this immediate, frantic, let's do all these tests. And then she said to me, you need to go immediately up to UWI. And I just couldn't believe it, you know. And then when I got the initial suggestion that it was multiple sclerosis, of course, you go down the dark web and you read the worst case scenario, and that wasn't very helpful. But luckily, through a journey that I embarked, and over a very long course of 12 months, we eventually solidified the diagnosis, and I think we went to the best people. So we were able to say, yes, this is it, and this is the best treatment for it. And I felt a lot better after that.
You are running the London Marathon in a few daars.
Yes.
You're taking up yourself, you're going all the way to London,
yes.
And you're doing this while living with multiple sclerosis. You've been transparent though.
Yes.
Training for this year's marathon hasn't gone well. You've had injury setbacks, unpredictable flare-ups, mornings where you have felt that you're running and putting on your shoes, impossible. Talk to us about what the symptoms are, what these flares are, and what kept you from withdrawing and say, you know what, I don't feel so good, I can't go again.
Well, you know, resilience is not about doing things when you're 100%. It's about doing things when you're 60%, but giving it all of that 60%. And that's one of my fundamental beliefs in terms of how we approach life. in terms of how we deal with challenges. And every morning when I get up and I see my kids, I know why I have to continue. You know them, they're very rambunctious. And I have to be around to put up with that. So I know that in doing this race and in raising these funds, I am aiding in a global research effort, which will reach us locally. Because the medication and the treatment that I'm getting is actually in London. I had to leave. I had a great team of medical experts here, and they were very frank with me when we had our diagnosis here. They said, we have these options in Jamaica. There are many other options. If it is a possibility for you, go somewhere where you can avail yourself of better options. And I'm actually a success story of early, aggressive intervention. So my symptoms now are very mild compared to many who currently are suffering with MS. And I would say, operating as a high-functioning individual. You know, initially when I got the diagnosis and I went to London, told the doctor, I said, boy, doc, I'm a lawyer, and I'm actually a very good one, and I want to stay that way. And he said, okay, let's do a test to see what your mental faculties are like. We did a very long test, 3 hours. And at the end he said, well, the good news is that you don't have any problems. As a matter of fact, you are functioning much higher than the average individual. So, you know.
But what does that mean for your right eye, for example, and having lost vision in there? Do you have vision regained? Are you compromised?
So what happened back in 2020, I lost vision. I was put on a course of high-dose steroids, which essentially stops the immune system from having any interaction with my nerves. And that immediately brought a halt to the progression. And over the course of a year, we monitored. We had to stay on steroids to keep the immune system suppressed so that it wouldn't operate in a way that it should not. And then I eventually went on a very aggressive form of medication, which in a sense killed the bad cells that were attacking my immune system, let them naturally regenerate, and the hope is that they will function properly.
For others, though, who don't know about multiple sclerosis, what are some other symptoms that others feel or that you feel as well on this? Because as you had done that research, you've seen clearly what others are experiencing. What are things that people deal with on this as well?
Yes, so it can range from loss in mobility. It can go as far as loss in mental faculties, obviously extreme fatigue. One of the symptoms which I faced, which was the most frightening, is what they call a MS hug, where in essence you feel as if someone is just strangling you, your entire body. I also had something that they call, I don't remember the name right now, but in essence it was described when I researched it, and I told my wife, as the sharpest pain known to man, because it feels as if someone is taking a knife and stabbing in your face. But those symptoms, luckily for me, have largely subsided, and what I live with on a daily basis is just extreme fatigue. You think about it like you're running on sand when you're actually running on asphalt, so it takes so much more. Or think about it like you're climbing a mountain and you're carrying a backpack with 100 pounds. You won't know.
Every single day.
Every single day.
And dealing with that every single day is something that so many people are dealing with as well. So you said you're going to be part of now this effort for a cure, and you're raising a minimum of £2,500.
I was. That's the minimum.
Hold on. No? And people are responding to your call because you said a minimum of 2,500. I've gone now to see what it is that you've gone. And he has his medal here with him that he has here that he's able to show of last year's run. Raised money as well.
Yes.
This year, you've now raised the money to 5,000, and people are almost now filling that up. Help people understand what they can do to support and why supporting matters.
Okay, so supporting is easy. The funds go to the MS Society, and when you actually log on, and my handle is on my social media to donate to the cause, you'll see what different tiers help the fund. The main aspect is research.
And we have that up on the screen here. Support the cause with him, and the donate link because he's been going to London as well, making sure that this run for the cure that you're doing, putting your body under distress, is for the purpose of now getting people to support.
Whether I run, whether I walk, I will finish. Right now I actually have a work engagement after, so I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to take my time, and London really is a beautiful experience. I mean, the entire 26.2 miles of the marathon is surrounded by supporters. And when I ran
people cheering and looking out for your Jamaican flag.
Exactly, but it's not just cheering. People genuinely caring and helping to propel you along. It's like nothing I've ever experienced in terms of 4 or 5 hours of people constantly supporting you. So the hope is, I raise these funds and then we can contribute to the research. We'll have better medication. Currently, MS does not have a cure. And my hope is that the research that is ongoing will eventually find a cure so that obviously I can be here for many years to come with my kids, but more importantly for all of the others, because the medication I am currently taking is as a result of the research and the fundraising that took place 10, 15 years ago. Right. So we're playing our part. It's a local problem, but it's a global effort.
I think that's so important. Mikhail, we're rooting for you. You're husband to Nirvana, father to Elijah and Jacob, and somebody who wants to be around for a very long time, allowing for others to be around for a very long time as well. So we're rooting for you for every single step you take on April 26th. Thank you for sharing your story with us tonight inside Lead Story.
Thank you, Jody, for having me. I really appreciate it. And
of course.
I hope Jamaica will help me to finish.
We're going to wish you all the very, very best. Let's close out the show tonight because the Strait of Hormuz is open. Oil prices fell 13% today, and somewhere in a cabinet room here in Jamaica, somebody probably got so relieved. But Dr. Damien King said something on his program last night that I've not been able to set aside. He said we should never have shielded Jamaicans from the real cost of oil.